The fluorescent lights of Castellano Enterprises hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across Elena Morales' desk. She blinked hard, trying to focus on the spreadsheet swimming before her eyes. The numbers blurred together, dancing across the screen like they were mocking her inability to concentrate. Her stomach cramped violently. She pressed a hand against her abdomen, willing the pain to subside. When was the last time she'd eaten? Yesterday morning? No, that had just been coffee. The day before, maybe. Half a sandwich split with her little brother before she'd rushed him to school. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Elena glanced at the clock. 3:47 p.m. Almost time for the weekly executive meeting, the one where Dante Castellano, CEO and her impossibly demanding boss, would expect her to have every detail memorized, every document prepared, every potential question anticipated. She reached for her water bottle. Empty. Of course it was empty. Everything was empty lately. Her bank account, her refrigerator, her gas tank, her reserves of strength. The office around her buzzed with controlled energy. Castellano Enterprises occupied the top 5 floors of a downtown Chicago high-rise, all polished marble and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. The company dealt in luxury imports, high-end real estate, exclusive restaurants, the kind of businesses that catered to people who never looked at price tags. Elena had been working here for 7 months as executive assistant to Dante Castellano himself. The salary of $8,000 monthly had seemed like winning the lottery when she'd accepted the position. Finally, she could afford her brother Marco's insulin, his therapy sessions, the special school that actually understood his needs. But that was before she understood how expensive keeping a 12-year-old type 1 diabetic alive actually was. Before the insurance company denied half the claims. Before Marco's psychiatrist recommended twice-weekly sessions instead of monthly. Before the school raised tuition by 15% with 2 weeks' notice. Now that $8,000 evaporated before it even hit her account. Rent, utilities, Marco's medication, his therapy, his school, his food. Always his food. Because growing boys needed proper nutrition, needed regular meals, needed someone to make sure they didn't skip breakfast or go to bed hungry. She made sure Marco never went hungry, which meant Elena did. Her vision swam suddenly. She gripped the edge of her desk, breathing slowly through her nose. Not now. She couldn't afford to fall apart now. Dante's meeting started in 10 minutes, and she still needed to print the quarterly reports, prepare the presentation materials, set up the conference room. Elena. She looked up to find James Chen, one of the junior associates, hovering near her desk with concern written across his face. "Are you okay? You look really pale." "I'm fine." The lie came automatically. "Just tired." "When's the last time you ate lunch?" The question hit too close. Elena forced a smile. "I had something earlier." "Thanks for asking." James didn't look convinced, but he nodded and walked away. Elena waited until he was gone, then pulled open her bottom desk drawer. Inside was her emergency stash. 3 packages of saltine crackers and a granola bar she'd been rationing for a week. She'd eaten the last crackers yesterday. The granola bar had been yesterday too, split into quarters to make it last. The drawer was empty now, except for some pens and a bottle of Advil. Her stomach cramped again, harder this time. Elena closed her eyes, counting backwards from 10. Mind over matter. She'd survived on less before. That semester in college when she donated plasma twice a week to afford textbooks. The year after their parents died when she'd worked 3 jobs to keep them in their apartment. This was nothing. She could handle this. The phone on her desk rang. Elena answered on the second ring, her voice professional and steady. "Dante Castellano's office. This is Elena. Conference room. 5 minutes. Bring the Benedetti contracts." Dante's voice was clipped, efficient. He never wasted words. "Yes, sir. I'll be right there." Elena hung up and immediately regretted standing. The room tilted violently. She grabbed her desk with both hands, waiting for the world to stop spinning. Breathe. Just breathe. The dizziness passed. Elena gathered the necessary files, checked her appearance in the small mirror she kept in her drawer. Dark circles under her eyes despite the concealer, cheekbones too prominent. Hair pulled back in a neat bun that hid how thin it had gotten. She looked professional. That was what mattered. The conference room was on the 40th floor, accessible by private elevator that required a key card. Elena had been given access her first week, a sign of the trust Dante placed in his executive assistant. She'd later learned that most of his previous assistants lasted less than 6 months. He was exacting, demanding, impossible to satisfy. But Elena had made it 7 months. She'd become indispensable. Learned his preferences, anticipated his needs, managed his impossible schedule with precision. He'd told her last month that she was the best assistant he'd ever had. She couldn't lose this job. Marco depended on her. The elevator doors opened onto the executive floor. Elena stepped out, files clutched against her chest, and immediately knew something was different. The energy here was tense, charged with the kind of electricity that came before storms. Victor Russo, Dante's head of security, stood outside the conference room doors. At 6'4" and built like he could break bones without effort, Victor's presence was always intimidating. But today, his usual calm expression was replaced with something harder, more alert. "Miss Morales." He nodded to her. "They're waiting." "Thank you, Victor." She pushed open the heavy doors and entered the conference room. The space was designed to impress with its massive table of dark wood, leather chairs that probably cost more than her monthly rent, and windows that offered a breathtaking view of the Chicago skyline. 5 men sat around the table. Elena recognized most of them. Anthony Benedetti, who owned half the construction companies in Chicago. Marcus Delgado, whose restaurant empire stretched across 3 states. Stefan Novak, real estate developer with more properties than anyone could count. And at the head of the table, Dante Castellano. At 38, Dante looked like he'd been carved from marble by an artist with a preference for sharp edges and dangerous beauty. 6'3", shoulders that filled out his custom Italian suits perfectly. Black hair always impeccably styled. His eyes were dark brown, almost black in certain light, and they missed absolutely nothing. Right now, those eyes were locked on her face, with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Elena." "Good, sit down and take notes." He gestured to the chair immediately to his right. She hesitated. That wasn't her usual position. Normally she stood near the back, took notes from a respectful distance. Sitting at the table meant something different, implied a level of authority she didn't have. "Sir, I can sit down." His voice allowed no argument. Elena crossed to the chair, hyper-aware of 5 sets of eyes tracking her movement. She set down her files, pulled out her tablet for notes, and tried to ignore how the room seemed to tilt slightly. "Gentlemen," Dante began, his attention returning to the others. "We have a problem. The Volkov family is moving into our territory. 3 of our shipping containers were intercepted last week. Not by police, by Volkov's people." Elena's fingers flew across her tablet screen, documenting everything. She'd learned quickly that when Dante talked about shipping containers and territory, he wasn't discussing the legitimate import business. Castellano Enterprises had another side, one that operated in shadows and dealt with things that couldn't withstand legal scrutiny. She'd made peace with that 7 months ago. Desperation had a way of adjusting moral boundaries. The meeting continued. Elena took notes, retrieved additional files when requested, answered questions about schedules and accounts. She did her job perfectly, professionally, while her vision started to blur at the edges and her hands began to tremble. "Not yet. Hold it together. The warehouse on 5th Street, Marcus was saying. We need to increase security there before—" Elena didn't hear the rest. The room suddenly felt like it was underwater. Sounds muffled and distant. Her stomach cramped so violently she gasped, a small sound that she immediately regretted. Every head turned toward her. "Elena?" Dante's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Are you—" She tried to stand, to excuse herself, to maintain some dignity. But her legs wouldn't cooperate. The world tilted sideways. The tablet slipped from her numb fingers. And then she was falling, the floor rushing up to meet her. And the last thing she registered before darkness claimed her was the sound of Dante's chair scraping violently across the floor and his voice, sharp with something that might have been fear, shouting her name. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. Elena woke to softness. That was her first conscious thought. Everything was soft, the surface beneath her, the pillow under her head, the blanket tucked around her body. It confused her because her apartment bed was lumpy, and her pillows were flat, and she couldn't afford the kind of blankets that felt like clouds. She opened her eyes slowly. Unfamiliar ceiling, crown molding, recessed lighting, the kind of expensive details that didn't exist in her world. Where memory crashed back. The conference room, the meeting, falling. Oh God. Elena sat up too quickly. The room spun, but she forced herself to focus, taking in her surroundings with growing horror. She was in an office, but not just any office. Leather furniture, mahogany desk, walls lined with books that looked like they'd actually been read. Floor-to-ceiling windows showing the Chicago skyline painted in sunset colors. Dante's private office. She was lying on the leather couch in Dante Castellano's private office. Panic flooded through her. How long had she been out? What had she missed? Was she fired? She couldn't be fired. Marco needed his medication. Needed his therapy. Needed... You're awake. Elena's head snapped toward the voice. Dante sat in one of the chairs facing the couch, his jacket removed, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that were surprisingly muscular for a man who worked behind a desk. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Not anger. Not disgust. Something else entirely. I'm so sorry. The words tumbled out in a rush. Sir, I apologize. I don't know what happened. It won't happen again. I can... When's the last time you ate? The question stopped her cold. What? Food. Elena, when did you last consume actual food? She couldn't tell him the truth. Couldn't admit that she'd been skipping meals for weeks, that she'd lost 15 pounds she couldn't afford to lose, that she'd been surviving on crackers and coffee because Marco's needs came first. I had breakfast this morning, she lied. Dante's jaw tightened. Try again. And this time don't insult my intelligence. Elena looked down at her hands, twisted together in her lap. Yesterday. I had something yesterday. What, specifically? Half a sandwich. And before that? She didn't answer. Dante stood abruptly. Elena flinched, expecting anger, expecting to be dismissed. Instead, he walked to his desk, pressed a button on his phone, and spoke in rapid Italian. She caught only fragments food, immediately. Everything. He ended the call and turned back to her. Dr. Rossi examined you while you were unconscious. Do you know what he told me? Elena shook her head mutely. Severe malnutrition, dehydration, dangerously low blood sugar. Your blood pressure is in the basement. His voice was controlled, but something dangerous simmered underneath. He wanted to take you to the hospital. I convinced him to let me handle it here. I'm fine, Elena protested weakly. Really? I just need... You collapsed in my conference room. You fell so hard you have a bruise forming on your temple. Dante moved closer, stopping a few feet from the couch. That is not fine, Elena. She touched her temple gingerly. Sure enough, there was a tender spot that would definitely become a bruise. Great. Just great. I caught you, Dante said quietly. Before you hit the floor, do you know how light you are? How little you weigh? There was something in his voice she'd never heard before. Not anger, concern, maybe even fear. I've been busy, Elena said, grasping for any explanation that didn't reveal her desperation. Working a lot. I forget to eat sometimes. Don't lie to me. He sat down in the chair again, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. I've watched you for 7 months, Elena. I know when you're lying, and right now, you're lying. The intensity in his dark eyes pinned her in place. Elena felt tears threatening and blinked hard to force them back. She couldn't cry. Not here. Not in front of him. Why? Dante asked, his voice softer now. Why are you starving yourself? I'm not Elena. Just her name, but the weight behind it demanded truth. She broke. My brother. The words came out choked. Marco. He's 12. Type 1 diabetic. I'm his guardian, have been since our parents died 5 years ago. His medication costs $3,000 a month, even with insurance. His therapy is $800 every 2 weeks. His school is another $2,000 monthly because it's the only one that understands his needs. The confession poured out of her like blood from a wound. I make $8,000 a month here, which seemed like so much money, but it's not enough. It's never enough. By the time I pay for his needs, There's maybe $200 left for rent and utilities and everything else. And I can't," her voice cracked, "I can't ask him to do without. He's a child. He didn't ask for this disease. He deserves to eat real food and have his medication and feel normal. So you go without," Dante said quietly. "So I go without," Elena confirmed. "Because I'm the adult. I'm supposed to take care of him. That's my job." Silence filled the office. Elena couldn't look at him, couldn't bear to see pity or judgment or whatever expression he wore. She'd revealed too much, shown weakness, proven she wasn't capable of handling her own life. She waited for him to tell her she was fired. Instead, she heard footsteps. Then Dante was crouching in front of the couch, bringing himself to her eye level. When she finally looked at him, his expression was fierce, almost angry, but not at her. "How long has this been going on?" 3 months, Elena whispered. "Since Marco's doctor increased his therapy sessions." 3 months, Dante's jaw worked. "You've been starving yourself for 3 months, and I didn't notice. That's not your responsibility, sir. You're mine." The words came out hard, absolute. "You work for me. You're in my care 8 hours every day. That makes you my responsibility, Elena. And I failed you." She shook her head. "No, you've been nothing but fair. You pay me well. This isn't your fault. Here's what's going to happen." Dante's voice took on the commanding tone he used when making business decisions. "You're going to sit here and eat the food that's being delivered. All of it. While you eat, you're going to tell me everything about Marco's medical needs and expenses. Then we're going to figure out a solution. Sir, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling you." He stood, walked to his desk, and returned with a bottle of water. "Drink this. Small sips. Doctor, Rossi said you need to rehydrate slowly." Elena took the water with trembling hands. The first sip was cool and perfect, and she realized how desperately thirsty she'd been. She forced herself to sip slowly even though she wanted to drain the entire bottle. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dante called out in Italian, and the door opened to reveal Victor carrying multiple bags that smelled like heaven. Elena's stomach cramped with desperate hunger. Victor set the bags on Dante's desk, nodded to them both, and left without a word. Dante began unpacking containers. Pasta with cream sauce, grilled chicken, fresh bread, salad, fruit, soup. Enough food for 4 people. "I don't know what you like," Dante said, arranging containers on the coffee table in front of her. "So I ordered everything. This is too much," Elena protested, even as her body betrayed her, leaning forward toward the food. "Then we'll save what you don't eat. Start with the soup. It's gentler on your stomach." He was right. Elena knew she shouldn't eat too much too quickly after days of near starvation. She picked up the soup container, hands shaking, and took a small spoonful. The flavor exploded across her tongue. Rich, savory, perfect. She took another spoonful, then another, trying to maintain control even though everything in her screamed to devour everything in sight. Dante watched her eat with an expression she couldn't decipher. After a few minutes, he spoke. "Tell me about Marco." So she did. Between careful bites of soup and bread, Elena told him everything. About the car accident that killed their parents. About becoming Marco's guardian at 23 with no preparation and no resources. About learning to manage a chronic illness while grieving and trying to finish her business degree. About the endless cycle of medical appointments and insurance battles and trying to provide stability for a traumatized child. Dante listened without interrupting, his dark eyes never leaving her face. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You're 28 now," he finally said. "Which means you've been raising him alone for 5 years. "Yes. And in those 5 years, you've never asked anyone for help." Elena looked down at her soup. "There wasn't anyone to ask. You have friends. I've seen you talking to people in the office. Friends don't want to hear about medical debt and insulin costs," Elena said quietly. "They want to go out for drinks and talk about normal things. I can't do that. I haven't been able to do that for 5 years. So you carry everything alone." Dante's voice held something she couldn't identify. "Until you literally fall down from the weight of it." She didn't respond. What could she say? Dante stood and walked to his windows, hands in his pockets, staring out at the Chicago skyline painted in sunset colors. "I'm going to make you an offer, Elena. And I want you to think carefully before you answer." Her heart rate spiked. "Sir? Your salary is increasing to $15,000 a month, effective immediately. I'm also adding Marco to the company's premium health insurance plan, the one that covers everything with no deductibles. His medical expenses will no longer be your burden. Elena's breath caught. 15,000. That would change everything. In exchange, Dante continued, still not looking at her, I need more from you. Not just administrative work. I need someone I can trust completely. Someone who knows about both sides of my business and can handle the complexity of managing operations that exist in gray areas. There it was. The catch. You want me to become complicit in your illegal activities, Elena said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Dante turned to face her. I want you to become my right hand in every aspect of my business. Yes, that includes operations that wouldn't survive federal scrutiny. But I don't deal in anything that directly harms innocent people. No drugs, no trafficking, no violence for the sake of violence. Just money laundering through legitimate businesses, Elena said. Import operations that don't declare every container, protection arrangements that probably overlap with extortion. His mouth curved slightly. You're more observant than I gave you credit for. I'd have to be stupid not to notice, sir. Men don't speak in code during business meetings if everything's legal. Security doesn't check visitors with that level of thoroughness for a normal import company, and yet you've stayed for 7 months without raising concerns. Elena met his eyes directly. Because I needed the job. Because Marco needed the insurance. Because beggars don't get to be choosers. And now? Dante moved closer. Now I'm offering you real security. A salary that will allow you to stop choosing between your needs and Marco's. Healthcare that will cover everything. But I need to know you're all in, Elena. That you'll handle information that could be dangerous if it fell into the wrong hands. That you'll maintain absolute discretion. And if I say no? Then you can leave today with a glowing reference and a severance package of $50,000. No hard feelings, no consequences. He paused. But Marco's medical care will be your problem to solve again. It was manipulation. She knew it was manipulation. Offering her everything she desperately needed in exchange for compromising her morals and potentially putting herself at risk. But it was also honest. He wasn't hiding what he was or what he needed from her. He was giving her a choice with full information. Elena thought about Marco, about his bright smile when she picked him up from school, about how he apologized for being expensive, for needing medication, for having a disease he couldn't control, about the guilt in his 12-year-old eyes when he knew she wasn't eating because of him. She thought about 3 more months of starvation, 3 more months of watching her savings disappear into medical bills, 3 more months of living, one emergency away from complete disaster. I need 24 hours, Elena said, to think about it, to make sure I understand what I'm agreeing to. Dante nodded slowly. Fair enough. Take tomorrow off, paid, think it through. But Elena, his voice dropped, became almost gentle. Whatever you decide, you're not going home hungry tonight. I'm having Victor drive you. There are groceries being delivered to your apartment as we speak. Enough for you and Marco for 2 weeks. Tears burned her eyes. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Dante returned to his chair, sitting down heavily. Because regardless of what you decide tomorrow, I can't unknow what I learned today. I can't watch someone under my care go hungry. It's not who I am. Elena wanted to argue, to refuse the charity, to maintain her independence. But she was so tired, so hungry, so desperate for someone else to carry the weight for just a moment. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet. Dante's expression was serious. Thank me when you've made your decision, and we both have to live with the consequences. They sat in silence while Elena finished eating. The sky outside darkened from sunset orange to deep purple. The office lights flickered on automatically. And somewhere in the building below, normal people were doing normal work, unaware that in this office, a starving woman was being offered salvation by a man who built his empire in shadows. Elena didn't know yet if she would accept. But for the first time in 3 months, she wasn't hungry. And that alone felt like a miracle. Elena spent that night in a state of surreal disbelief. Victor had driven her home in Dante's personal car, a black Mercedes that probably cost more than 3 years of her salary. He'd helped carry in the groceries, and there were so many groceries. Fresh vegetables, quality meat, pasta, rice, bread from an actual bakery, fruit that looked like it belonged in a magazine. The kind of food she used to buy before everything became about rationing and survival. Marco had stared at the overflowing bags with wide eyes. Did you win the lottery or something? Something like that, Elena had said, hugging him tight. Go wash up for dinner. I'm making your favorite. She'd cooked chicken parmesan with real cheese and fresh pasta. Marco had eaten 3 helpings, chattering about his day at school, his science project, the new friend he'd made in math class, normal 12-year-old things. He didn't ask where the food came from, didn't question this sudden abundance. He just smiled with marinara sauce on his chin and told her it was the best meal she'd ever made. Elena had gone to bed with a full stomach for the first time in months, and she'd lain awake until 3 a.m., staring at her ceiling, thinking about Dante's offer. $15,000 a month. Full health coverage for Marco. All she had to do was sell her soul a little. Look the other way when shipments came through that probably shouldn't. Keep secrets that could send people to prison. Become complicit in whatever shadowy operations Dante Castellano ran beneath his legitimate empire. Was it worth it? She thought about Marco's smile. About the relief of not calculating every penny. About never again having to choose between insulin and rent, between therapy and electricity. By dawn, she'd made her decision. Elena arrived at the office at 7:30 a.m., earlier than her usual 8 o'clock start. She dressed carefully in her best suit, applied makeup to hide the exhaustion, pulled her dark hair into a professional bun. She looked like someone ready to accept a deal with the devil. The executive floor was quiet this early. Most staff didn't arrive until 9, but light glowed from beneath Dante's office door. Of course he was already here. Elena suspected the man never slept. She knocked twice, firm and confident. Come in. Dante sat behind his desk, coffee in hand, reviewing documents on his computer. He looked up as she entered, and something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe. Or satisfaction. I've made my decision, sir. He set down his coffee, giving her his full attention. And? I accept your offer. $15,000 monthly, premium health coverage for Marco, and increased responsibilities managing both legitimate and less legitimate operations. She moved closer to his desk, maintaining eye contact. But I have conditions. His eyebrows rose slightly. Conditions? First, I want everything in writing. Salary, benefits, job description, severance terms if either of us decides to end the arrangement. I need legal protection. Reasonable. What else? Second, if I'm going to be complicit in illegal activities, I need to understand exactly what I'm involved in. No surprises. No situations where I'm suddenly an accessory to something I didn't agree to. Dante leaned back in his chair, studying her with those dark, intense eyes. You're negotiating. I'm protecting myself and my brother. There's a difference. A slow smile curved his lips. Not the polite smile he used with business associates. Something more genuine, almost impressed. Most people would just accept the money and ask no questions. I'm not most people. No, Dante said softly. You're definitely not. He stood and moved to the windows, hands in his pockets, a gesture Elena was beginning to recognize as his thinking pose. After a long moment, he spoke. What I'm about to tell you stays between us. Victor knows. Anthony Benedetti knows. Marcus Delgado suspects. But my broader organization doesn't have the full picture. Understood? Yes, sir. The Castellano family has controlled Chicago's shipping and import operations for 3 generations. My grandfather started with legitimate cargo. My father expanded into, let's call them gray market opportunities. I've spent the last 15 years trying to transition back toward legitimacy, while maintaining the influence and revenue streams my family built. Elena listened, filing away every detail. We move certain goods through ports that customs doesn't need to examine too closely. We provide security services for businesses that operate in contested territories. We offer protection to establishments that prefer to avoid police involvement. We launder money through our restaurants and real estate holdings. Dante turned to face her. But we don't traffic drugs or people. We don't engage in violence unless directly threatened. And we don't prey on the vulnerable. The Volkov family you mentioned in yesterday's meeting, Elena said. They're competition. They're a threat. Viktor Volkov runs drugs, weapons, occasionally human cargo. He's been pushing into my territory for 6 months, testing boundaries, seeing if I'll defend what's mine. And will you? Dante's expression hardened. Always. What's mine stays mine. The possessive certainty in his voice, sent a shiver down Elena's spine that she chose to ignore. Your role, Dante continued, would be to manage the coordination between my legitimate businesses and shadow operations. You'd handle scheduling, documentation, communication. Make sure nothing connects back to me directly. You'd also sit in on certain meetings where your presence would be beneficial. Beneficial how? Men tend to speak more freely around women. They assume you're just taking notes, not actually analyzing everything they say. His smile was sharp. That's a mistake that works in our favor. Elena absorbed this. When do I start? Now. Dante returned to his desk and pulled out a folder. This is your new contract. Read it carefully. Ask questions. Take it to a lawyer if you want, though I recommend using someone outside my network for impartiality. She took the folder with steady hands. The contract was surprisingly straightforward. Clear salary terms, comprehensive health benefits, explicit severance terms that were more than generous. The job description used careful language, special projects coordinator, and confidential operations manager that sounded legitimate while covering the actual work. There was also a confidentiality clause that was ironclad and would survive even after employment ended, and a clause that said if she was ever prosecuted for activities related to her employment, Dante would cover all legal expenses and provide financial support during incarceration. You're protecting me, Elena said, surprised. I'm protecting my people. That's what I do. Dante pulled a pen from his desk drawer and set it in front of her. If you sign this, you're mine for a minimum of 2 years. After that, if you want out, I'll help you transition wherever you want to go. Better job, different city, whatever you need. But those 2 years, you're committed. Elena thought about Marco. Thought about $15,000 a month and health insurance that would cover everything. Thought about finally being able to breathe without calculating pennies. She signed without hesitation. Dante countersigned, then tucked the original into his desk and handed her a copy. Welcome to the inner circle, Elena. I think you'll find it's not as frightening as you imagine. We'll see, she said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. First order of business. Dante pulled up a file on his computer. I need you to review these shipping manifests. Flag anything that seems problematic. They're for a container arrival next Tuesday. Legitimate on paper, but certain items have flexible interpretations. Elena moved around the desk to look at the screen, hyper-aware of how close she was standing to him. He smelled like expensive cologne and coffee, and something else she couldn't identify. Power, maybe, or danger. She focused on the manifests, scanning line items. Most were standard imports: Italian marble, Spanish wines, French textiles. But 3 entries caught her attention. These, she pointed. The listing says architectural elements, but the weight ratios are off. Real marble or stone would weigh significantly more. Dante's smile was approving. Excellent catch. What else? The Spanish wines have vintage years that don't match the region listed. Rioja doesn't produce that varietal in those years. And the textile shipment's value is listed at $15,000, but the volume suggests it should be at least triple that. Either it's very poor quality fabric, which doesn't match your usual standards, or the value is deliberately underreported. All 3 flags are correct. Dante leaned back in his chair, looking satisfied. The architectural elements are actually high-end electronics, computers, phones, equipment that wealthy clients purchase through us to avoid certain taxes. The wines are correct vintage, but sourced through channels that bypass official import tariffs, and the textiles are designer knockoffs. Not illegal to own, but illegal to sell as authentic, which is why the value is low on paper. Elena absorbed this. So I'm looking for discrepancies that indicate smuggling or tax evasion. You're looking for anything that could expose us to unnecessary scrutiny or suggest we're working with unreliable partners. Every operation carries risk. Our job now is to minimize that risk while maximizing profit. Understood. Elena returned to her side of the desk. What else do you need today? Dante pulled up his calendar. Anthony Benedetti is coming at 10. He's concerned about some of his construction sites being vandalized. Likely Volkov's people sending a message. You'll sit in, take notes, look decorative and harmless. I'm not decorative, Elena said flatly, his mouth curved. No, but they don't need to know that yet. Let them underestimate you. It makes them careless. The morning passed in a blur of meetings and documents. Elena sat through discussions about protection arrangements and territory disputes, about shipping schedules and cash flow management. She took detailed notes, asked clarifying questions, and watched Dante operate. He was impressive. Controlled, strategic, never letting emotion show except when he wanted to make a point. Men respected him, feared him, even, and she was beginning to understand why. By noon, her stomach was growling. Dante glanced at her and stood immediately. "Lunch. We're going out. Sir, I brought a sandwich." "No, you didn't. I checked your bag while you were in the restroom. It's empty except for your wallet and phone." His voice was firm. "We're going to Giovanni's. Don't argue." Elena wanted to argue, but Dante was already shrugging into his jacket, and Victor appeared in the doorway with car keys in hand, and she found herself being efficiently ushered out of the office and into the elevator. Giovanni's was an upscale Italian restaurant in the Loop, the kind of place with white tablecloths and a wine list that read like a novel. The maitre d' greeted Dante by name and led them to a private table in the back. "Mr. Castellano, it's been too long." "Giovanni, this is Elena, my new operations manager. She'll be dining with me regularly. Take excellent care of her." Giovanni's weathered face broke into a warm smile. Of course. Any friend of Dante's is family here." After he left, Elena leaned across the table. "Operations manager? That's your public title. Easier than explaining person who helps me run my criminal empire." Dante's tone was dry. "Order whatever you want. This is the first of many business lunches we'll have." Elena studied the menu, acutely aware of the prices. Even the salads cost $30. "This is too expensive, Elena." Dante's voice was gentle but firm. "One of the conditions of your new role is that you let me worry about money. You've spent 5 years sacrificing everything for Marco. Let someone take care of you for once." Something about the way he said it, not pity, not charity, just matter-of-fact concern, made her throat tight. She ordered chicken marsala. Dante ordered the seafood risotto. They talked about work, about the manifests she'd reviewed, about the upcoming negotiations with a supplier who was getting greedy. It felt almost normal. Almost like they were just colleagues having lunch, not a mafia boss and his newly complicit assistant. "Tell me about Marco," Dante said as their food arrived. "What's he like?" Elena smiled, the way she always did when someone asked about her brother. "Smart. Too smart sometimes. He wants to be a video game designer when he grows up. Spends hours sketching characters and building worlds in his head. Does his illness hold him back? Sometimes. He gets frustrated when his blood sugar crashes and he can't think clearly. Or when he has to leave class to check his levels. Kids can be cruel about things that make you different." Dante was quiet for a moment. "My younger sister had leukemia when she was 8. Spent 2 years in and out of hospitals. I was 15, watching my parents fall apart, unable to do anything except sit with her and read comic books." Elena's breath caught. "Did she? She survived. She's 30 now, married, has a daughter of her own, lives in Boston." His expression softened. "But those 2 years taught me something about helplessness. About watching someone you love suffer and being unable to fix it. Is that why you're helping us?" Elena asked quietly. "Because you remember that feeling?" "I'm helping because it's the right thing to do. And because..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Because when I saw you collapse yesterday, when I caught you before you hit the ground and felt how light you were, something in me shifted. You've been in my employ for 7 months, in my care 8 hours every day, and I didn't notice you were starving. That's unacceptable. It's not your fault." "Yes, it is. You're mine to protect now, Elena. Mine to ensure you're safe and healthy and able to do your job. That's not negotiable." There was that possessive certainty again. The way he said mine, like he was claiming ownership. It should have bothered her. Should have raised red flags about control and boundaries. Instead, it made her feel something she hadn't felt in 5 years. Safe. The first real test came 3 days later. Elena was reviewing invoices in Dante's office when Victor appeared in the doorway, his usual calm expression replaced with something tense. "Boss, we have a situation. The warehouse on 5th Street. Dante's expression went cold and hard in an instant. "Volkov? His people just tried to torch it. Our security stopped them, but there was gunfire. 2 of ours injured, 1 of theirs dead." Elena's blood went cold. Gunfire, dead bodies. This wasn't theoretical anymore. Dante was already moving, grabbing his jacket, his phone. Call Dr. Rossi for our injured. Get the cleanup crew to the warehouse immediately. I want the body gone and the scene sanitized before police arrive. Already done, boss. Good. Dante turned to Elena. His expression was fierce, almost dangerous, but when he spoke to her, his voice gentled slightly. Stay here. Lock the door. Don't let anyone in, except Victor or me. What's happening? Elena asked, though she already knew. War. Dante's jaw was tight. Volkov just escalated from posturing to actual violence. I have to respond. By doing what? He looked at her for a long moment. Do you really want to know? Did she? Elena thought about the contract she'd signed. About the money depositing into her account. About Marco's insulin, sitting in her refrigerator, paid for by a man who operated outside the law. Yes, she said. I want to know. Dante's expression was unreadable. I'm going to send a message. Volkov attacked my property, injured my people. If I don't retaliate, I look weak. Weakness invites more attacks. So I'm going to hit one of his operations. Hard. Fast. Tonight. People will get hurt. People already got hurt. One of my warehouse guards has a bullet in his shoulder. Another has a concussion from getting knocked into a wall. Dante's voice was cold. I protect my people, Elena. That's the fundamental rule. Anyone who threatens them answers to me. He left before she could respond, Victor falling into step beside him. The office door closed with a quiet click that sounded like finality. Elena sat alone in the sudden silence, heart pounding, mind racing. She'd just committed herself to this world. This violent, dangerous world where disputes ended in gunfire and bodies had to be cleaned up before police arrived. What had she done? Her phone buzzed. A text from Marco's school. Just confirming Marco's appointment with Dr. Chen is covered under his new insurance plan. No copay needed. He's doing great in class today. Elena stared at the message. At the cheerful emoji. At the words, no copay needed, that would have been impossible 3 days ago. She'd done what she had to do. For Marco. For survival. She just hoped the price wouldn't be higher than she could afford to pay. Dante returned at 7 p.m. His suit jacket was gone. His shirt sleeves were rolled up. There was a small cut on his cheekbone that hadn't been there this morning. Elena stood from the couch where she'd been waiting. Laptop forgotten beside her. Are you hurt? It's nothing. Dante moved to his bar cart and poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey. He downed it in one swallow, then poured another. Volkov's drug warehouse on the south side is now ash. His people got out alive, but barely. His product is destroyed. His income for the month is gone. And your people? Safe. We went in fast, set the charges, got out. Nobody died. He met her eyes. But someone could have. That's the reality of this world, Elena. People die. She moved closer, studying the cut on his face. It wasn't deep, but it was bleeding slightly. Without thinking, she grabbed a tissue from his desk and reached up to dab at it. Dante went very still. Sorry, Elena said, suddenly aware of how close she was standing. I should have asked first. No, it's... His voice was rough. It's fine. Thank you. She cleaned the cut gently, hyper-aware of his eyes on her face. Up close, she could see details she'd never noticed. The slight scar through his left eyebrow, the gray starting at his temples, the way his jaw was locked tight with tension. You were scared, she said quietly. Terrified, Dante admitted. Not of the fire or the fight, of fucking up, of getting one of my people killed, of losing control. But you didn't. Not this time. He took her wrist gently, stopping her ministrations. But I might next time. This life, what I do, it's dangerous. And you're part of it now. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what you signed up for? Elena met his eyes directly. I understand that you're a man who operates outside the law. That you have enemies who will hurt people to get to you. That violence is sometimes necessary in your world. And I understand that by working for you, I'm complicit in all of it. And you're okay with that? She thought about Marco's smile over chicken parmesan. About the relief of a full refrigerator. About never again having to choose between medicine and food. I'm okay with it, she said firmly. Something shifted in Dante's expression. The tension eased slightly. Good, because things are going to get complicated. Volkov won't let this stand. He'll retaliate. And when he does, you'll protect your people, Elena finished, including me. Especially you. The possessive certainty was back. You're mine now, Elena. Under my protection. That means Volkov can't touch you without going through me first. And if he tries? Dante's smile was cold and dangerous. Then he'll discover exactly what happens when someone threatens what's mine. The retaliation came faster than expected. Elena was working late the following Tuesday, finishing reports Dante needed for a morning meeting. Most of the office had cleared out by 7. Just her, a few cleaning staff, and security. She was so focused on her laptop that she almost missed the sound. Footsteps in the hallway, multiple sets. Moving too fast, too purposefully. Elena's head snapped up. Through the frosted glass of Dante's office door, she saw shadows. 4, maybe 5 figures, moving toward the executive floor. Wrong. This was wrong. Her hand moved to her phone, finding Dante's number on speed dial, but before she could press call, the office door burst open. 4 men entered. Large, dressed in dark clothing, moving with the coordinated efficiency of professionals. The lead man had pale blonde hair and cold blue eyes that marked him as Russian. Volkov's people. Elena's breath stopped. Miss Morales. The lead man's accent was thick, his smile not reaching his eyes. We have business to discuss. She forced herself to stay calm, to think. The panic button under Dante's desk, she was too far away. Her phone, she gripped it tighter, thumb hovering over the call button. This is private property, she said, proud of how steady her voice sounded. You need to leave. We need you to come with us. Mr. Volkov wants to speak with you. I'm not going anywhere. The man's smile widened. That wasn't request. 2 of his men moved forward. Elena lunged for the panic button, but they were faster. Strong hands grabbed her arms, yanked her away from the desk. Her phone clattered to the floor. Let me go. She struggled, kicking out, connecting with someone's shin. A hand clamped over her mouth, silencing her. She was being lifted, carried toward the door, and panic flooded through her system like ice water. Then she heard it. The elevator ding. Footsteps running. Let her go. Dante's voice was cold as death, filled with a fury that made the air itself seem to vibrate. The men holding Elena hesitated. Through her peripheral vision, she saw Dante in the doorway, Victor beside him, both armed with guns pointed steadily at the Russians. Castellano. The lead Russian's voice was carefully neutral. This doesn't concern you. Everything that happens in my building concerns me. And the woman you're touching? Dante's expression was murder. She's mine. Which means you just made a fatal mistake. Volkov wanted to send message received. Now here's mine. Dante moved forward, gun never wavering. You have exactly 3 seconds to release her before I put a bullet in each of your heads. 1. The hands on Elena tightened. 2. Boss, Victor said quietly. Cleanup will be complicated. I don't care. Dante's finger moved to the trigger. 3. The Russian released Elena, so suddenly she stumbled. Dante was there instantly, catching her, pulling her behind him. His free hand wrapped around her waist, holding her against his back protectively. Get out, Dante said to the Russians. And tell Volkov that if he ever tries to touch her again, I will burn his entire organization to the ground. I will kill every person he's ever cared about. And I will make him watch before I kill him too. The lead Russian's jaw tightened. You're starting war over secretary? I'm starting war over my people. Now get the fuck out of my building before I change my mind about letting you live. The Russians backed toward the door, hands visible, no sudden movements. The moment they disappeared into the hallway, Dante shoved his gun at Victor. Follow them. Make sure they leave. Then I want security tripled on every entrance. Nobody gets to this floor without my explicit permission. On it. Victor disappeared. Dante turned to Elena, hands gripping her shoulders. Are you hurt? Did they hurt you? No, I'm okay. But she was shaking, adrenaline crashing through her system like a tidal wave. You're not okay. Dante pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. You're in shock. It's normal. Just breathe. Elena pressed her face against his shirt, inhaling his scent, letting his solid presence ground her. His heart was racing beneath her ear, as fast as hers. I'm sorry, Dante said into her hair. I should have anticipated this. Should have had more security. This is my fault. How is it your fault that psychotic Russians broke into your office? Because I made you a target by associating you with me. His arms tightened. Volkov knows the best way to hurt me is through my people. And you, he pulled back to look at her face. You're important enough that taking you would cause me pain. Important enough. The words hung between them, weighted with implications Elena wasn't ready to examine. What happens now? She asked. Now I take you somewhere safe. My penthouse has security that makes this building look like a joke. You'll stay there until I've dealt with Volkov. For how long? As long as it takes. Dante's expression was grim. This is war now, Elena. Real war. And I can't protect you if you're exposed. Elena wanted to argue, wanted to insist she could take care of herself. But she'd just been grabbed by armed men, had felt the terror of being helpless, had been seconds away from being kidnapped. She needed protection, and Dante was offering it. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'll go. Relief flooded his face. Thank you for not fighting me on this. I'm practical, not stupid. Those men would have taken me if you hadn't arrived. I know. Something dark and dangerous flickered in his eyes. And I'm going to make sure Volkov understands exactly what that attempt cost. Dante's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a luxury building in the Gold Coast, protected by security that was both visible and invisible. Guards at the front desk. Cameras everywhere. Biometric locks on the elevator. Victor personally walking them up. The space itself was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. Modern furniture that managed to feel comfortable despite being clearly expensive. Art on the walls that was definitely original. Guest suite is down that hallway, Dante said, gesturing. Ensuite bathroom, walk-in closet. I'll have clothes delivered in your size tomorrow. I have clothes at my apartment, which I'm not letting you return to until this is resolved. Give me your keys. I'll have Victor pack a bag for you and Marco. Elena's head snapped up. Marco. Oh God, Marco. He's at school. His aftercare program ends at 6, already handled. Victor picked him up an hour ago on my orders. He's safe. Where? My sister's house in Evanston. She has a daughter Marco's age. They're having dinner together right now, completely protected. Sophia knows how to handle security situations. The relief was so intense it made Elena dizzy. You got my brother to safety. Of course I did. He's important to you, which makes him important to me. Dante moved to his bar and poured 2 glasses of wine. Drink this. You need to settle your nerves. Elena took the glass with shaking hands. Your sister knows about me? Sophia knows I have a new operations manager who's in danger because of my business. She doesn't need details beyond that. Dante sat on the couch, gesturing for Elena to join him. Marco will stay there until it's safe. Sophia's house has private security that rivals mine. He'll be fine. I should call him. You should. But Elena. Dante's voice was gentle. Don't tell him about tonight. He doesn't need that fear. He was right. Marco worried enough already without knowing his sister had been nearly kidnapped by Russian mobsters. Marco answered on the second ring. Ellie, this place is amazing. Sophia's daughter Mia has every video game ever made. We're doing a tournament. Can I stay for dinner? The easy happiness in his voice made her throat tight. You can stay as long as you need to, buddy. I have to work late on a big project with Mr. Castellano. Sophia said you could sleep over if you want. Really? That's so cool. Wait, are you okay? You sound weird. I'm fine. Just tired. Be good for Sophia, okay? Take your insulin on schedule. I will. Love you, Ellie. Love you too. So much. She ended the call and immediately felt tears threatening. Marco was safe. That was all that mattered. He sounds like a good kid, Dante said quietly. He's the best. Elena wiped at her eyes. I don't know what I'd do without him. You'll never have to find out. I promise you that. They sat in silence while Elena sipped her wine, the adrenaline slowly fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Dante made a few phone calls in Italian, his voice low and intense, coordinating something Elena didn't try to follow. When he finally set down his phone, he turned to her. I need to leave for a few hours. Handle some business related to tonight. You'll be safe here. Victor's staying, along with 2 other guards. Don't open the door for anyone except me. Where are you going? To make sure Volkov understands that what happened tonight crosses a line he can't come back from. Dante's expression was cold. He tried to take you. That's personal. And I handle personal matters personally. You're going to hurt people. Yes. The blunt honesty was almost refreshing. No justifications. No pretty lies. Just truth. Be careful, Elena heard herself say. Something softened in Dante's face. Worried about me? You're my employer. If you die, I'm unemployed. His laugh was surprised and genuine. Fair enough. He stood, buttoning his jacket. There's food in the kitchen. Bedroom has everything you need. Try to sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Elena watched him leave, Victor falling into step beside him. The penthouse door closed with an expensive click. She was alone in this beautiful space with guards she couldn't see and danger she couldn't fight. She'd been working for Dante Castellano for just over a week in her new role. In that time, she'd learned about money laundering, witnessed the aftermath of arson, and been nearly kidnapped. Elena walked to the windows and stared out at the city lights reflecting off Lake Michigan. Somewhere out there, Dante was doing violent things to violent people, defending his territory, protecting his people. Protecting her, she should feel guilty, should feel horror at being part of this world. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Protected, valued, important. For the first time in 5 years, someone else was carrying the weight. And God help her, it felt like coming home. Dante returned at 3 a.m. Elena was still awake, curled on the couch with a blanket, pretending to read a book she'd found on his shelf. She'd tried sleeping in the guest room, but every small sound had jerked her awake, heart pounding, convinced the Russians had returned. When the penthouse door opened, she was on her feet instantly, blanket falling to the floor. Dante stood in the entryway, Victor behind him. His suit jacket was gone. His white shirt had blood on it, not much, but enough to be visible. His knuckles were split and raw. You're hurt, Elena said, moving toward him, before conscious thought caught up. Most of this isn't mine. Dante's voice was rough, exhausted. Victor, go home. Get some sleep. I'll see you at noon. Victor nodded and left without a word. The door closed, leaving them alone. Elena gestured to the couch. Sit. I'll get the first aid kit. Elena, it's late. You should be sleeping. Sit. Down. Something in her tone made him obey. Dante sank onto the couch with a quiet groan that suggested he was more hurt than he wanted to admit. Elena found the first aid kit in the master bathroom. Of course, Dante would have a comprehensive medical kit in his home and returned to the living room. She sat beside him, opened the kit, and reached for his hands. His knuckles were a mess. Split skin, swelling, definitely going to bruise. She cleaned them carefully with antiseptic, trying to be gentle even though she knew it had to hurt. Dante watched her face while she worked. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. You got hurt protecting me. The least I can do is clean your wounds. I got hurt protecting what's mine, he corrected quietly. That's different. There was that word again. Mine. Possessive and absolute. Elena applied antibiotic ointment, then bandaged his knuckles with practiced efficiency. 5 years of caring for Marco had made her skilled at basic first aid. Where else are you hurt? She asked. Ribs. Took an elbow. Nothing broken, just bruised. Let me see. Dante hesitated, then started unbuttoning his shirt. Elena told herself this was medical, practical, nothing more. But when he shrugged out of the shirt and she saw his bare torso, her breath caught. He was beautiful in a dangerous way. Muscled but not bulky, with old scars that spoke of violence survived. And yes, his ribs were already showing dark bruising along the left side. Elena pressed gently, checking for anything that felt wrong. Does this hurt? Yes, but I don't think anything's broken. Just tender. She retrieved an ice pack from the freezer, wrapped it in a towel, and held it against his ribs. Dante hissed at the cold but didn't pull away. What happened tonight? Elena asked quietly. I visited 3 of Volkov's operations. Sent a very clear message about what happens when someone threatens my people. His jaw was tight. By morning, he'll understand that you're untouchable. Did anyone die? Dante was silent for a long moment. 2 of his men. They drew weapons first. It was self-defense. Self-defense in a criminal war. The contradiction should have bothered Elena more than it did. I'm sorry, she said. that you had to do that because of me. Don't apologize for being important to me." Dante's free hand covered hers, the one holding the ice pack. "This isn't your fault. It's Volkov's fault for crossing lines he shouldn't have crossed, and it's my responsibility to protect what I value." "Why?" The question burst out. "Why do I matter so much? I've worked for you for barely over a week in this new role. You're not just anything," Dante interrupted, his voice fierce. "You're brave and intelligent and loyal. You've spent 5 years sacrificing everything for your brother. You collapsed from starvation rather than ask for help. And when I offered you a way out, you negotiated terms instead of just taking the money." His dark eyes held hers. "You matter because you're remarkable, Elena. And because when I caught you before you hit the ground last week, something in me recognized something in you. Like calls to like. What does that mean? It means we're both protectors. We both put the people we love before ourselves. We both understand that survival sometimes requires compromise." He shifted the ice pack to his other hand so he could cup her face with his bandaged one. "It means I see you, Elena. Really see you. And I'm not letting anyone hurt what I see." The moment stretched between them, charged with something Elena wasn't ready to name. She should pull away. Should maintain professional boundaries. Should remember that he was her boss, and this was complicated and dangerous. Instead, she leaned into his touch, letting herself feel protected for just a moment longer. "You need sleep," she finally said, pulling back gently. "Real sleep, not whatever you've been surviving on. So do you. When's the last time you actually slept through the night?" Elena laughed softly. "Probably. About 5 years ago. Then we're both disasters." Dante stood carefully, wincing. "The master bedroom is yours tonight. I'll take the guest room. This is your home. And you're my guest who was traumatized in my office. Take the better room. That's not negotiable." Elena was too exhausted to argue. She gathered the first aid supplies, cleaned up the bloody gauze, and headed toward the master bedroom. At the doorway, she paused and looked back. Dante was still standing in the living room, shirtless and bruised, and looking at her with an intensity that made her heart race. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. For Marco. For protecting me. For—" her voice caught. "For seeing me. Always," Dante said simply. Elena went to bed in his room, in his sheets that smelled like him, and slept more soundly than she had in years. The next 2 weeks established a new normal that was anything but normal. Elena lived in Dante's penthouse, protected by security that made leaving feel like a military operation. She worked from his home office, coordinating operations through encrypted channels, managing the delicate balance between legitimate business and shadow empire. Marco stayed with Sofia, thriving in ways that made Elena's heart ache. He had a friend his own age. His blood sugar was perfectly controlled with the premium insulin the new insurance covered. He video called Elena every evening, chattering about school and video games and normal 12-year-old things. He had no idea his sister was living with a Mafia boss because Russian mobsters wanted to kidnap her. Dante was careful about their proximity. Professional during work hours, keeping appropriate distance even when they were alone. But Elena noticed things. The way his eyes tracked her movement across a room. How he made sure she ate regular meals, sometimes cooking for her himself when it was late and they were both working. The protective hand at her lower back when they had to leave the penthouse for meetings. The way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. And Elena, she was noticing him too. The sharp intelligence behind every decision. The way he treated his people with respect even while commanding absolute loyalty. How he called Marco every few days to check on him, talking about video games and school like he genuinely cared. The contradictions were maddening. He was a criminal who protected fiercely, a dangerous man who was gentle with her, someone who'd built an empire on violence but read philosophy and collected art. She was falling for him. The realization hit her one evening in the 3rd week. They were working late, reviewing contracts at the dining table. Dante had made pasta for dinner, actual homemade pasta, because apparently he cooked when stressed. Elena had been teasing him about being domestic, and he'd laughed, really laughed, the sound warm and genuine. And she'd thought, I could love this man. The thought terrified her. Elena? Dante's voice pulled her back to the present. You okay? You went somewhere. Just tired. She lied. What were you saying about the shipping schedule? He studied her face for a moment. those dark eyes seeing too much. But he let it go, returning to the contracts. The Tuesday shipment needs to be delayed. Intel suggests Volkov's people are watching the port more carefully. We'll move it to Thursday. Different dock. Smart. Elena made notes on her tablet. What about the Benedetti construction situation? Handled. We've placed additional security at his sites. Volkov's vandalism has stopped. Because you scared him? Because I eliminated 12 of his operations in 2 weeks. Dante's voice was matter of fact. He's bleeding money, losing territory, running out of options. And when he runs out of options, desperate men do desperate things. Elena finished. Exactly. Which is why you're not going anywhere without Victor or me until this is completely resolved. Elena set down her tablet. Dante, I can't live like this forever. Eventually I need to go home. Marco needs to come home. I know. Frustration flickered across his face. I'm working on a permanent solution, which is eliminating the threat entirely. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Eliminating. Not negotiating with. Not reaching a truce with. Eliminating. You're going to kill him, Elena said quietly. Dante met her eyes directly. If that's what it takes to ensure you and Marco are safe, yes, because we're yours to protect. Because you're mine. Period. He stood, moved around the table to crouch in front of her chair. Elena, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about business anymore. This isn't just about you being my employee or my operations manager. His hands gripped her knees gently. Somewhere in the past 3 weeks, you became important to me in ways that have nothing to do with work. And that terrifies me, because in my world, caring about someone makes them a target. But I can't help it. I can't stop caring. Elena's breath caught. Dante, I'm not asking you to feel the same way. I know this situation is complicated. I'm your employer. I'm dangerous. I live in a world you never wanted to be part of. His voice roughened. But I need you to know that when I say you're mine, I mean it in every possible way. Not just professionally, not just as someone I'm protecting, but as someone He stopped, jaw clenching like the words wouldn't come. Elena reached out and cupped his face, feeling the stubble rough against her palm. Someone you what? Someone I'm falling in love with, Dante finished, the words quiet but absolute. And I've never said that to anyone who wasn't family. I've never let anyone close enough to matter this much. But you matter, Elena. You matter so much it's destroying every rule I've ever had about keeping people at a distance. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it. I matter because I'm convenient, because I'm here. You matter because you're brave and brilliant and you make me laugh, because you negotiate with me instead of just obeying, because you take care of my injuries at 3 a.m., even though I'm the reason you were in danger. His thumb stroked her knee. Because when you smile at Marco on video calls, I see the kind of love and dedication I've spent my whole life trying to protect. And I want— What do you want? Everything? Dante said roughly. I want you in my home because you choose to be here, not because you're hiding from threats. I want to wake up next to you. Want to make you pasta when you're stressed and hold you when you're scared. Want to be the person you depend on, not because you have to, but because you want to. Elena's vision blurred with tears. That's a lot to want from someone you've known for less than a month. I know, and I'm not asking for answers now. He closed his eyes briefly. I'm being honest because I've learned that in my world, you don't always get second chances to tell people they matter. And if something happens to me tomorrow, I needed you to know. Nothing's going to happen to you tomorrow, Elena said fiercely. You can't promise that. Then I'll promise something else. She leaned forward, close enough that their faces were inches apart. I promise that I'm falling too. That when I see you hurt, I feel it like my own pain. That every time you talk to Marco, every time you make sure I eat, every time you look at me like I'm precious, I fall a little harder. Dante's eyes opened, dark and intense. Elena. But I'm scared, she continued. Because you could die. This war with Volkov, it's escalating. You go out there and fight and bleed, and every time I wonder if you're coming back. I already lost my parents. I can't lose you too. You won't. You can't promise that. She echoed his words back to him. And Marco, if something happens to me because I'm with you, he's alone. 19 years old, no family, no one to support him. I can't risk his future for this, no matter how much I want it. Understanding dawned on Dante's face, followed by something that looked like pain. So what are we doing here? I don't know, Elena whispered. I just know I can't walk away from you. But I also can't fully commit until I know we'll survive this. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood, pulling her up with him. Then I'll wait. However long it takes for you to feel safe, for this situation with Volkov to resolve. For you to trust that loving me won't destroy everything else you care about. I'm a patient man when it matters. What if the wait is years? Then it's years. He pulled her into his arms, holding her against his chest. You're worth waiting for, Elena. Worth doing this right instead of rushing into something neither of us is ready for. She pressed her face against his shirt, breathing him in. Thank you. For understanding. I understand fear. I've lived with it my entire adult life. His hand stroked her hair gently. But I meant what I said. My feelings aren't temporary or convenient. Whenever you're ready, I'm here. They stood like that for a long time, holding each other in the quiet of his penthouse, while the city lights sparkled beyond the windows. It wasn't a solution. It wasn't a promise of happily ever after, but it was honest. And in a world built on lies and violence, honesty felt like the most precious gift either of them could offer. The breaking point came 4 days later. Elena was reviewing shipping schedules when Dante burst into the home office, Victor at his heels. Something in their expressions made her heart drop. What happened? Volkov knows where Marco is. Dante's voice was tight with controlled fury. He has people watching Sophia's house. They haven't made a move yet, but it's only a matter of time. Ice flooded Elena's veins. How? How did he find out? We're still determining that. But right now, I need you to trust me. Dante was already pulling out his phone. I'm moving Marco to a secure location. Somewhere Volkov can't touch him. But it means you won't be able to see him for a while. Maybe a week, maybe more. No. Elena stood abruptly. Absolutely not. He's 12 years old. He needs me. I'm not letting him be hidden away with strangers. He'll be with Sophia and her family. At my family's estate upstate. 2-hour drive from here, private security, completely off any grid Volkov has access to. Dante gripped her shoulders. Elena, I know this is hard, but it's the only way to guarantee his safety. Then I'm going with him. You can't. You're too recognizable. Volkov's people know your face. If you go, you lead them right to him. The logic was sound, and Elena hated it. Hated every word of it. I can't just abandon him. You're not abandoning him. You're protecting him. Dante's voice gentled. This is temporary. Once I've dealt with Volkov permanently, you'll have Marco back. I promise you that. How are you going to deal with him permanently? Dante's expression went cold and hard. By ending this war the only way it can end. With one of us dead. Elena's breath stopped. No. Dante, no. You can't, there has to be another way. There isn't. Volkov has made this personal. He's threatened my people, attacked my operations, and now he's targeting a child. His jaw clenched. That crosses the final line. Either I eliminate him, or he eliminates me. There's no middle ground. And if he eliminates you, what happens to me? To Marco? That won't happen. You can't know that. Elena. Dante pulled her against him, holding tight. Listen to me. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've survived challenges from men more dangerous than Viktor Volkov. I'm not going to die. People die all the time in your world, Elena said, her voice muffled against his chest. Good people, prepared people. One wrong move, one lucky shot. I won't leave you. His voice was fierce. I won't abandon you and Marco. That's a promise I can make and keep. Elena wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him so desperately. But fear was a living thing in her chest, squeezing until she could barely breathe. The sound of her phone ringing interrupted them. Marco's school. Elena answered with shaking hands. Miss Morales, this is Principal Chen. I wanted to let you know there was an incident this afternoon. Elena's blood went cold. What kind of incident? Some men were seen outside the school fence during dismissal. They were taking pictures. Security asked them to leave and they did. But the principal's voice was concerned. We've increased security protocols, but I wanted you to be aware. Thank you for telling me, Elena managed. Marco is actually going to be staying with family friends for a few days. I'll send you the updated contact information." After she hung up, she looked at Dante. They were at his school. Taking pictures. That confirms it. They're planning something. Dante was already texting rapidly. "Victor's picking up Marco right now. They'll be at the estate by evening. Sophia's already there with Mia. I need to talk to him. Tell him." Elena's voice broke. "Tell him what? That he has to hide because the Mafia boss I work for has enemies who might hurt him to get to me? Tell him you love him. Tell him this is temporary. Tell him Sophia's family has a lake and video game room and he's going to have the best week of his life." Dante cupped her face. "Tell him everything except the danger. He doesn't need that fear." He was right. Marco didn't need to know about threats and violence. He needed to feel safe and loved and normal. Elena called her brother. He answered cheerfully, clearly already with Victor in the car. "Hey, Ellie. Victor says we're going on an adventure to some mansion upstate. Mia's going too." "Is this for real?" "It's real, buddy. Sophia's family has this amazing estate. You're going to love it. But what about school? And my therapy appointment? We're handling all of that. Think of it as a vacation." Elena forced brightness into her voice. "You'll have fun with Mia. And I'll call you every single day, okay?" "Okay." Marco's voice turned more serious. "Are you sure you're all right? This seems kind of sudden." "I'm perfect. Just working on a big project with Mr. Castellano. We need to focus. And I know you're in good hands with Sophia. Well, Victor says there's a whole arcade at this place, and a pool, and horses." Wonder crept into Marco's voice. "So I guess a week won't be too bad. That's my brave boy. I love you so much." "Love you too, Ellie. See you soon." Elena ended the call and immediately burst into tears. Dante caught her as her knees gave out, lowering them both to the floor, holding her while she sobbed. "I know," he murmured into her hair. "I know it hurts, but he's safe. That's what matters. I've never been away from him for more than a night," Elena choked out. "Not in 5 years. He's my whole world. I know. And I swear to you, Elena, I will end this threat so you can have him back. Whatever it takes." She pulled back to look at his face. "Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't die trying to protect us. Because if you die, if I lose you," her voice cracked, "I won't survive it. Do you understand? I'm already falling in love with you. If you die now, it will break me." Dante's expression softened into something achingly tender. "You love me? I'm terrified of loving you. But yes." Elena touched his face, tracing the strong line of his jaw. "I love you, Dante Castellano. And I need you to stay alive." He kissed her then, deep and desperate, and full of promises neither of them could guarantee. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you too," he said quietly. "And I'm going to stay alive. For you. For 34 Head. Marco. For the future we're going to build together. When? Soon. I'm meeting with Volkov tomorrow night. Neutral territory. Just the two of us. We're going to settle this." Terror flooded through Elena. "That's a trap. It has to be a trap." "Probably. But it's also the only way to end this without more bloodshed." Dante stood, pulling her up with him. "I'll have backup in position. Multiple contingency plans. Victor will be monitoring everything. I'm going to be careful. Careful isn't enough. Elena." His hands framed her face. "I've never had someone waiting for me to come home before. Never had a reason to be extra cautious. Now I do. That changes everything." She wanted to argue more, to beg him not to go, to suggest they run away together and leave all of this behind. But she knew that wasn't possible. Dante's sense of honor, of protecting his people, would never allow him to run. So instead, she kissed him again, let herself pour every ounce of love and fear and desperate hope into that contact. When they finally separated, she said the only thing that mattered. "Come back to me. Always," Dante promised. Elena prayed he was right. The next 24 hours were the longest of Elena's life. Dante spent the day coordinating with his people, moving pieces into position for whatever confrontation awaited him. Elena worked mechanically, managing schedules and communications while her mind screamed with anxiety. They had dinner together that evening. Dante cooked again, this time making his mother's recipe for osso buco, Rich and perfect and tasting like comfort, they ate slowly, neither wanting to acknowledge that this might be their last meal together. "Tell me about your mother," Elena said quietly. "You've mentioned her a few times, but I don't really know the story." Dante smiled, the expression softening his whole face. "She was fierce. Immigrated from Italy when she was 18 with nothing but a suitcase and determination. Met my father in Chicago. Married him despite her family's objections because he was already involved in the life." He took a sip of wine. "She could have left. Could have taken us kids and gone back to Italy where it was safer. But she stayed, because loyalty mattered more to her than safety. She used to say that love without risk is just comfortable companionship. And you learned from her," Elena said. "About loyalty and protection. Everything I am, I learned from her. When she died heart attack at 63, I promised myself I'd build something that honored her legacy. An empire, yes, but one that protected people rather than preying on them. She'd be proud of you," Elena said softly. "I hope so." Dante reached across the table to take her hand. "She'd like you too. Would appreciate your strength and dedication. Would probably lecture me about not scaring you away with my intensity." Elena laughed despite everything. "I don't scare easily. I've noticed." His thumb stroked across her knuckles. "One of the many things I love about you." After dinner, they moved to the couch. Elena curled against Dante's side, his arm around her shoulders, both of them acutely aware of time passing too quickly. "If something goes wrong tomorrow," Dante said quietly, "Victor has instructions. You and Marco will be protected, provided for. There's a fund set up in both your names. Enough for his education, his medical care, your future. You'll never have to worry about money again." "I don't want your money," Elena said fiercely. "I want you. I know. But I need you to have the security anyway, because if the worst happens..." His voice roughened. "I need to know you're both okay." Elena shifted to look up at him. "The worst isn't going to happen. You're going to end this war, come home, and we're going to figure out this complicated, messy thing between us. Is that an order?" "Yes. I'm ordering you not to die." Dante smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'll do my best to comply." They were both quiet for a moment. Then Elena made a decision. "Stay with me tonight," she said. "Not in separate rooms, not maintaining professional distance. Just stay with me." Dante's hand tightened on her shoulder. "Elena, I know what I'm asking. And I know the timing is terrible. But if tomorrow goes wrong, I don't want to regret not having this." She met his eyes directly. "I want one night where we stop being careful. One night that's just us." "Are you sure?" Instead of answering with words, Elena kissed him, poured every ounce of love and fear and desperate need into that contact. Dante responded immediately, his control shattering, kissing her back with an intensity that made her dizzy. They made it to the bedroom somehow, shedding clothes and inhibitions with equal urgency. The first time was fast and desperate, both of them needing the connection, the physical proof that they were alive and together. The second time was slower, exploratory, learning each other's responses and preferences. Dante was gentle and thorough, treating Elena like she was precious, irreplaceable. By the third time, exhaustion and satisfaction had mellowed them into something almost peaceful. Elena lay with her head on Dante's chest, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her bare shoulder. "I love you," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too." His arms tightened around her. "And I'm coming back to you tomorrow, Elena. That's a promise. Then I'll be waiting." They fell asleep tangled together, holding each other like lifelines. And Elena tried not to think about the fact that this might be the only night they ever had. Dante left at 6 p.m. The next evening, he dressed carefully in a dark suit, checked his weapon, and kissed Elena like he was memorizing the taste of her. "I'll call as soon as it's over," he promised. "You better." Victor was waiting by the door, his expression professionally neutral but his eyes holding concern. He nodded to Elena once, a silent promise to protect his boss, and then they were gone. The penthouse felt cavernous and empty without Dante's presence. Elena paced for an hour, unable to sit still, unable to focus on anything except the clock ticking away seconds. She called Marco to distract herself. He was full of stories about the horses and the lake and the epic video game tournament he was winning. Hearing his voice helped steady her nerves slightly. "Love you, Ellie. Tell Mr. Castellano I say hi. I will, buddy. Love you too. 8 p.m. No word. 9 p.m. Still nothing. At 9:30, Elena's phone finally rang, but it wasn't Dante's name on the screen. It was Victor. Her hand shook as she answered. Tell me, it was a trap. Victor's voice was grim. Volkov brought 12 men. We were prepared for that. But he also had a second team waiting, ambush at the exit point. It got ugly. Is he alive? Elena's voice came out strangled. Please tell me he's alive. He's alive. Injured, but alive. We're bringing him to the penthouse now. Dr. Rossi is on his way. Relief and terror warred in Elena's chest. How bad is the injury? Gunshot wound to the shoulder. He's stable, but he needs immediate medical attention. We'll be there in 5 minutes. Victor hung up. Elena stood frozen for a moment, then sprang into action. She cleared the dining table, grabbed towels and first aid supplies, made sure the elevator was ready to receive them. When Victor finally arrived, half carrying Dante through the door, Elena's heart stopped. Dante's shirt was soaked with blood. His face was pale, jaw clenched against obvious pain. But his eyes found hers immediately, and he tried to smile. Still alive, he managed. Told you I'd come back. You're an idiot, Elena said, tears streaming down her face as she helped Victor guide Dante to the couch. A complete and total idiot. But I'm your idiot, Dante said, then winced as Victor laid him down. Dr. Rossi arrived. Moments later, a trim man in his 50s, with steady hands and no questions. He examined Dante's shoulder, nodded once, and began working. Bullet went through clean. No major arteries or bone damage. He'll need stitches and rest, but he'll heal. Doctor, Rossi looked at Elena. Can you assist me? Elena nodded, forcing herself to focus. She'd seen Marco through countless medical procedures. She could handle this. For the next hour, she helped Dr. Rossi clean and stitch Dante's wound. Dante bore it stoically, his eyes never leaving Elena's face. When it was finally done, Dr. Rossi left pain medication and antibiotics with strict instructions. 2 weeks of rest minimum. No physical activity beyond walking. The shoulder needs time to heal properly. After the doctor left, Victor filled them in on the full situation. Volkov's dead. Boss got him in the confrontation. His second in command tried to take over, but without leadership, their organization is imploding. The rest of our people are cleaning up the remaining threats. Victor's expression was satisfied. It's over. The war is over. Elena closed her eyes briefly, letting the words sink in. Over. The threat was over. Marco, she asked, can come home whenever you're ready. I'll pick him up first thing tomorrow if you want. Yes, please. Elena gripped Dante's good hand. We want him home. After Victor left, Elena helped Dante to the bedroom. He was moving carefully, clearly in pain despite the medication, but alive. Blessedly, miraculously alive. She settled him into bed, then climbed in beside him, careful not to jostle his injured shoulder. You scared me, she whispered. I know. I'm sorry. Dante's good arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. But it's done. Volkov's gone. The threat is eliminated. You and Marco are safe. At what cost? You got shot. I've been shot before. I'll heal. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. And now we can stop being careful. Stop waiting. We can actually have that future we talked about. Elena looked up at him, seeing the love and determination in his dark eyes. You really mean that? Even though it's complicated and messy? Especially because it's complicated and messy. Dante smiled. I love you, Elena Morales, and I want to build a life with you. Want to watch Marco grow up. Want to wake up next to you every morning. Want everything. I want that too, Elena admitted. I'm still scared. But I want it. Then we'll figure it out together. He kissed her softly. One day at a time. One moment at a time. But together. They fell asleep holding each other. Dante's heartbeat steady beneath Elena's ear. Both of them finally safe. Finally able to breathe. The war was over. The threats were eliminated. And somehow, miraculously, they'd both survived to see the other side. Elena stood in the kitchen of Dante's penthouse. Their penthouse now watching Marco and Mia argue good-naturedly about video game strategy. The kids had become inseparable after that week at the estate, and Sophia had become one of Elena's closest friends. Dante emerged from his study, moving easily now that his shoulder had fully healed. He wrapped his arms around Elena's waist from behind, pressing a kiss to her neck. "Happy?" he murmured. Elena leaned back against him, watching Marco laugh at something Mia said. Deliriously. Over the past 6 months, everything had changed. Dante had systematically legitimized his operations, phasing out the illegal activities and focusing on the businesses that could withstand scrutiny. He'd kept his promise about protecting his people. Everyone who'd worked for him had been given new positions in the legitimate companies or generous severance packages. Elena had taken on the role of Chief Operating Officer of Castellano Enterprises, managing the now clean operations with the same efficiency she'd brought to the shadier work. She'd also enrolled in an online MBA program, finally pursuing the education she'd sacrificed years ago. Marco was thriving. His health was perfectly managed with the premium insurance. He'd made friends at his school. He and Mia were already planning to attend the same college in a few years, both dreaming of careers in game design. And Elena, she was happy. Actually, genuinely happy for the first time since her parents had died. "I have something for you," Dante said, releasing her to pull a small box from his pocket. Elena's heart jumped. "Dante, before you panic, it's not that, not yet," he smiled. "We agreed to wait at least a year before making it official. I'm respecting that timeline." He opened the box to reveal a delicate platinum necklace with a small key pendant. "A key?" Elena asked, touching it gently. "To everything I own. Legally, officially, you now have full access to all my accounts, properties, and holdings. If something happens to me, everything transfers to you and Marco." Dante's expression was serious. "I wanted you to have security. Real security, not just promises." Tears blurred Elena's vision. "You didn't have to." "Yes, I did. Because you and Marco are my family now. And family protects family." He fastened the necklace around her neck. "Besides, someone needs to keep me honest. Make sure I stay on the legitimate side of the law." "You've been doing pretty well with that," Elena said, turning in his arms. "The shipping company expansion is completely legal. The restaurants are thriving. Even the real estate deals are transparent. All thanks to my brilliant COO. Dante kissed her softly. "Who would have thought the woman I found starving herself would end up running my empire? Who would have thought the Mafia boss who caught me when I fainted would end up being the love of my life?" "Ellie, are you guys being gross again?" Marco called from the living room. "Because Mia and I want to know if we're ordering pizza for dinner." Elena laughed. "We're ordering pizza. Extra cheese for you, buddy." As the evening progressed, pizza delivery, video games, Marco's insulin check that was now routine rather than stressful, Mia's parents picking her up with hugs and promises to do it again next week. Elena felt something settle deep in her chest. Peace, security, home. Later that night, after Marco had gone to bed in his own room in the penthouse, Dante had insisted they needed more space, so he'd bought the unit next door and combined them. Elena and Dante stood on the terrace overlooking Lake Michigan. "Do you ever regret it?" Elena asked quietly. "Leaving that life behind? The power, the control, not for a second." Dante wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "That life was lonely and dangerous and built on fear. This life with you and Marco, with legitimate business and actual friends, this is what I always wanted but never thought I could have. Even though I'm bossy and make you eat vegetables and won't let you work past 9 p.m. Especially because of that." She could hear the smile in his voice. "Someone needs to take care of me. Might as well be the woman I'm going to marry. Presumptuous. I haven't said yes yet." "You will." His arms tightened. "When I ask properly, with a ring and romantic gesture and all the things you deserve. You'll say yes because you love me and because we're building something real together." Elena turned in his arms to face him. "You're right. I will say yes. Because you're it for me, Dante Castellano. My boss, my protector, my partner, my love, the man who saw me at my lowest point and decided I was worth saving." "You saved yourself," Dante corrected gently. "I just gave you the tools to do it. Everything else, your strength, your resilience, your dedication to Marco, that was all you. Then we saved each other," Elena said. "You gave me security and protection. I gave you a reason to choose legitimacy over violence. Fair trade." "More than fair." Dante kissed her, slow and deep and full of promises. When they finally separated, both breathing hard, he smiled. "Come on, let's go check on Marco one more time, then get some sleep. Tomorrow's a big day, the Benedetti contract signing. The quarterly review with the board. That meeting with the new shipping partners. Such a normal, boring, legitimate life we're living now," Elena teased. "Boring is underrated." Dante took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "Boring means no one's shooting at me. No enemies threatening the people I love. No midnight phone calls about warehouse fires or territory disputes. Just business and family and building something that will last." They walked inside together, checked on Marco fast asleep with his blood sugar monitor nearby and his sketchbook fallen open on his chest, and went to their own bedroom. As Elena got ready for bed, she caught sight of herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was healthy, confident, glowing. So different from the hollow-eyed, desperate person who'd collapsed in that conference room 7 months ago. She touched the key necklace at her throat, thinking about everything that had changed. The money that had saved them. The protection that had kept them safe. The love that had transformed everything. "Elena?" Dante's voice came from the bedroom. "You okay?" "More than okay." She turned off the bathroom light and went to him, climbing into their bed, into his arms. "I'm perfect." "Yes, you are," Dante murmured, pulling her close. "Absolutely perfect." They fell asleep tangled together, protected by security that was no longer necessary but comforting nonetheless. Outside, the city lights sparkled against the dark water of Lake Michigan. Somewhere out there, people were struggling the way Elena had struggled. Fighting impossible odds, making desperate choices, wondering if they'd survive another month. She couldn't save them all, but she'd saved herself and Marco. And with Dante's help, she was starting a foundation, the Morales Foundation, named after her parents to help other guardians caring for children with chronic illnesses, to provide the resources and support she desperately needed and never had, turning pain into purpose, transforming survival into something meaningful. It wasn't perfect. There were still hard days when Marco's blood sugar crashed, when work was overwhelming, when the memories of those desperate months made Elena wake up in a cold sweat. But Dante was always there, steady, protective, loving her through the fear and celebrating the victories. And Marco was thriving, growing, dreaming big dreams about the future. They'd made it. Against impossible odds, through dangerous circumstances, despite every reason to fail, they'd made it. Elena pressed a kiss to Dante's chest, right over his heart, and whispered the words that had become her evening prayer. "Thank you for catching me." In his sleep, Dante's arms tightened around her, an unconscious gesture of protection and love. He'd caught her when she fell, and he'd never let go. And that, Elena thought as sleep finally claimed her, was worth every risk, every complication, every moment of fear. Because some people were worth falling for. And some people caught you when you fell and helped you learn to fly. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.